Fractions between fractions and parts to wholes using fractions. Sometimes you're going to be asked to find fractions that lie between other fractions. And if you'll recall from the video in class we watched the other day with the rational numbers in Sirlacourt, there were a bunch of different ways to figure this out, and there are an infinite number of fractions between fractions. So some of the strategies you all came up with in class were to find common denominators, to use percents, and then also you could use decimals to find fractions between fractions. So let's look first at common denominators. So suppose I have the fraction 1/3 and 2/3. Well, these already have common denominators. But if I think about what I could do with these, another common denominator, or another multiple of 3, would be 6. So if I use 6 as my common denominator, and I think about it, well, 3 times 2 is 6, so 1 times 2 is 2, and 3 times 2 is 6, and 2 times 2 is 4. So the fraction that will be between 2 6 and 4 6 is 3 6, or 1/2. So that's one way to think about it. Another way to think about it is if you had 1/5 and 2/3. Common denominator here would be 15 times 3 to get from 5 up to 15. So 1 times 3 is 3. And multiply by 5 to get 15, and 2 times 5 is 10. So here I have many fractions that lie in between 3/15 and 10/15. So different fractions I could list. I can just list them all. So I can say 4/15, 5/15, 6/15, 7/15, 8/15, and 9/15. Now, if you'd like, you can simplify these. This one cannot be simplified, but this one is 1/3 because I factored out a 5 and a 5 from here. This one has a common number of 3 in it, so 6 divided by 3 is 2, 15 divided by 3 is 5. 7 and 15 cannot be simplified. 8 and 15 cannot be simplified. 9 and 15 have a greatest common factor of 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. So between 1/5 and 2/3 lie 4/15, 1/3, 2/5, 7/15, 8/15, and 3/5, as well as many, many other fractions. But those are just some of them. Okay, so the second strategy would be to use percents. Now, you'll recall the percent is a comparison to 100. So if I have 1/2, that's 50%, 50 out of 100. And if I have 2/5, that's 40%, or because I'd multiply this by 20 and multiply this by 20, so that's 40%. So some things that are between 50 and 40% are 49%, 48%, 47%, etc. And with those percents, since a percent is a comparison to 100, 49% is 49 hundredths, 48% is 48 hundredths, which can be simplified, 47% is 47 hundredths. So all of these fractions lie between 1/2 and 2/5. So that's a way to do it. So notice my common denominator here is really 100. So still sticking with kind of the common denominator idea. Okay, and then a third way to find fractions between fractions kind of goes with the percent idea, in that you could change them to decimals. So 1/2 is 5/10, and 1/4 is 25 hundredths. So things between are, if I'm going to make this be 50 so I can see this a little bit better. So between 25 and 50, I have 49 hundredths, 48 hundredths, 47 hundredths, and so forth. And then I just write those as fractions. So 47 hundredths is between 1/2 and 1/4. Okay, the second thing that I said that I was going to talk about was parts and wholes using fractions. So an example of this would be, supposing I have this little rectangle here, and I say that that rectangle is 1/3 of a fraction strip, what would the whole look like? So if that's 1/3, I am going to need 3 of these. So that makes 2/3. And then, oops, sorry about that. So I would have my 2/3 and then my 3/3. And so that's what a whole would look like. So it would be 3/3. Okay, so that was fairly easy. Suppose you were asked or told that this piece here, oops, come away, represented the whole, and then what would 1/3 look like? So if that's a whole, what's 1/3 going to look like? Well, you're just going to take your strip and cut it into 3 pieces. So there are all different ways to think about this. Suppose I had multiple pieces, like I have here, and I was asked to find out how many fourths are in here. Well, this is 1, 2, 3 wholes. So the number of fourths in here, well, in the first one, I would have 1, 2, 3 fourths. And then in the second one, I'd have 4 fourths. And then in the next one, I'd have 4 fourths. So 4 and 4 and 4, that would be 12 fourths.